Well, aloha, everybody. Happy Tuesday, June 29th. Peter Greenberg here with our Facebook Global Live update on travel around the world. Today, we're coming to you from Kauai, of course, the Garden Isle, the oldest island in Hawaii, and one of my most favorite islands in terms of romance and beauty. When you come here and you look at what you're seeing out there, that's not a screensaver, that's real. And it's no coincidence that so many of the most popular movies ever made were filmed here, ranging from South Pacific to Jurassic Park. And one of my favorites, two of my favorites actually, that nobody ever sees. One, actually a John Wayne movie, believe it or not. I just loved it for the scenery, Donovan's Reef. And the other one, which is one of my all-time favorites, which nobody's ever seen, starring George C. Scott and Claire Bloom, it was the last Hemingway book actually, called Islands in the Stream. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But of course, here I am reporting on Kauai as Hawaii as a state begins to open up. In fact, the magic date is July 8th, coming up. That's when the state will actually reach about a 60% vaccination level, which will allow them to relax a lot of the restrictions, meaning that fully vaccinated travelers can come here without quarantining at all or going through a lot of the other restrictions. Check for the local rules as they change all the time, but July 8th is the target date. And it also means that you can travel within the islands without those restrictions as well. They've also relaxed the number of people restrictions, meaning indoor gatherings can go from 10 to 25 people, outdoor gatherings from 25 to 75 people. So things are opening up. Now, that begs a bigger question, which, by the way, was on the agenda before the pandemic. How do you manage growth over tourism? Already the islands are jammed, not just Kauai, Maui, you bet, everybody's here. Hotels are operating at about 85% occupancy or higher. Rental cars, as we talked about before, are impossible to find. Restaurants may be open, but you can't get in because, they just can't take any more reservations. So they're going to have to come to grips with managing those numbers as we're all given an opportunity during the pandemic to do a do-over, to do a reset. Can Hawaii deal with that double-edged sword of the economic needs of a state that depends so totally on travel and tourism and the people who actually live here and their own environmental and responsibility concerns? So we'll be covering that in the coming weeks on our radio show, of course, which you can listen to every Saturday. Check your local listings. If you can't find it in your local market, that's easy. It's called Eye on Travel. Go right to our website, petergreenberg.com. You can punch the icon there and listen to it live streamed every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Check your local time zones as well. Lots of stuff to get into today in terms of the news, Hawaii being one of them, of course, because so many airlines are now coming here, right? The one airline that's about to become the predominant carrier in Hawaii will come as a surprise to you, because in many markets in the U.S., it's also become the predominant carrier in cities like Pittsburgh, in cities like Boston, and cities like St. Louis. It's called Southwest Airlines, and they're coming not just to Kauai, but to almost every island multiple times, and they're filling those planes. One big shout out, by the way, to Southwest, and it comes from an addicted frequent flyer workaholic, and that's their website, their internet. A lot of airlines really gouge you for that. We're talking, $20 to $30 a session. Southwest, it's $8, not per flight, per day. So if you're connecting flights, you're still on. That's reasonable. And if you're flying 5.5 hours over the ocean, you want a system that works. It does, and it's not going to mortgage your house. Now, lots of other stuff to talk about in the news. As you may remember, last week, only 5 days ago, we did this show from Tanzania in Dar es Salaam. And just to give you an idea of our flight pattern, we flew from Dar es Salaam to Zanzibar. Those of you who guessed correctly on our on our posting, that's where I was coming from. And then from Zanzibar to Dubai, connecting to Emirates, Dubai on a 15-hour flight to Los Angeles, and then on a flight to Kauai. So about 33 hours in total elapsed time. And I'm still alive, and so are you. So if you've got any questions, send them in today. Of course, our website, petergreenberg.com. And of course, you can always email me to peter@petergreenberg.com, and we'll answer it either here live or online. Now, we've got the July 4th weekend coming up. Huge numbers, bigger than ever. Everything's going to be strained. We're talking TSA checkpoints to begin with. We're still dealing with volunteers at the airlines trying to man security checkpoints as well as the gates. And the gates are not getting pretty. It's getting worse. And airlines, I'm sad to report, I told you this was going to happen, are going back to bad pre-pandemic behavior. We're seeing more change fees, more fare increases than you can imagine. And then there are the little things. And I know this is going to sound, somewhat silly, but I have to bring it up because you notice these things. I remember going to a quote unquote 5-star hotel, which I used to stay at all the time, and noticing one day in the restaurant that the napkins were no longer linen, they were paper. Now, I don't really care, but it sent a message as to the accountants running the asylum and how they were basically cutting down on the service. And they did. And this applies to hotels and airlines. It's one thing in the interest of safety and public health to basically get rid of housekeeping or to cut down service in the room. It's one thing to cut down on other services because you're worried about public safety. But as the world is emerging from COVID-19, are they ever going to come back and clean my room? I mean, seriously. And so many other questions that are coming up. And are they going to nickel and dime us on other costs? Now, there are court cases pending right now in a number of states against major hotel chains for those draconian resort fees. And it's still a big issue. I know that the folks at Marriott are fighting it, but let's get real. What is a resort fee? Somebody has to tell me what it is and why you're charging it. By the way, that's a rhetorical question. I can tell you why you're doing it. You want to be competitive on rate, but not on value. So you get our attention with a $149 a night room rate, but then there's a $30 a night resort fee for what? A towel? So guys, it's about failure to disclose. It's about being transparent. And it's about, in some cases, and Las Vegas is a prime example, by the way, as a destination where the resort fee and all the other fees can actually either equal or surpass their room fee. During the pandemic, some hotels in Las Vegas, like Caesar's Palace, they almost doubled the resort fees, and they don't include anything, right? Do they include valet parking or pool access? What do they include? And you know what? You never get the straight answer, because what it includes is the opportunity for the marketing department to be rate competitive. That's it, and nothing else. Now, to add insult to injury, there was one hotel in Las Vegas, over and above their already existing resort fee, which was running $20 a night, added another nearly $4 a night charge for utilities. They're charging you for the electricity in your room. Yikes. I'm waiting for the breathing surcharge. I'm not joking. I know some yokel is going to try that. So what do you do about this as consumers? It's simple. Remember what I said, failure to disclose? Not everybody discloses these. Some of them make them quote unquote mandatory. Really? No, it's all negotiable. I don't care what anybody tells me, resort fees are negotiable, right? So it's up to you to be really sharp on this. Did they disclose the resort fee to you when you made your reservation, either in person or online? Did they do it in writing? Did they disclose the resort fee when you signed, when you checked into the hotel and you signed the registration form? Did they do that? If they didn't, and all of a sudden it gets on your bill, and it's a daily charge, you know what? You dispute that charge. And that there are reasons why there are court cases filed by attorneys general in at least 2 U.S. states right now against hotels for doing this. The Federal Trade Commission is on top of this now. We have a new administration. You'll see already what the U.S. Department of Transportation did in the case of not giving people back their refunds. And by the way, a fair shout out to Air Canada. They're now refunding money to people who even canceled their own flights as opposed to the airline canceling them. So they're writing the checks now. But the reality is they're only doing it because they know there's an enforcement action pending and a proposed $25.5 million fine. So that resort fee is just another example of going back to bad habits. And now this is my pet peeve, but remember I told you about the linen napkin going to paper? My good friend Gary Leff at viewfromthewing.com noticed something the other day that I should have noticed, and that is Okay, I have an admission to make. For those of you who fly a lot, you might be in the same boat that I am. I'm addicted to those little Biscoff cookies, right? Biscoff, you know what I'm talking about. Delta serves them, American serves them, other airlines serve them as well. Well, they used to serve them to you, and this is how much I'm addicted to this, in a 2-cookie pack, right? Well, now American is only serving them in a 1-cookie pack, and they're smaller. Come on. This reminds me of why I get on the plane to begin with. I'm not on the plane for the food, right? I'm not on the plane for the rich Corinthian leather. I'm not on the plane for the Broadway show tunes that the flight attendants will not be performing on board. I'm on the plane for 2 things: to go from point A to point B and not die, and for that goddamn Biscoff cookie. Please don't deny me, right? It sends the wrong signal, because if you're cutting back on the cookies, what else are you cutting back on, right? The cookie is a public statement. All right, I'm done with that now. But if you believe me and you agree with me, let me hear from you on that. All right, so much on that. One more thing that came out of the pandemic here in Hawaii in particular is how we're getting better and advanced in biometrics and in clearances. And that's the folks at Clear. They worked in the state of Hawaii as a partnership to do this biometric clearance process that gives you basically a health pass. And it was a pilot program here, and it worked. And now they did it just initially on just flights from LA to Honolulu. It's now, as of this week, in all ports of departure to Hawaii. And of course, they're going to expand it, as they've done so many other times, to other venues, whether it's football stadiums, concert venues, you name it. But anything to make the actual travel experience more streamlined, I give a shout out to those guys. So they get one from me on this. The health pass actually works, and it's fast. So good luck with that one, and keep it going. Now, moving along, we had some questions from last week that I promised you would get you some answers to. Somebody wanted to know about Nairobi and Tanzania. Here's the deal. You have the U.S. State Department giving you a level 3 or a level 4. Put that on the table in a faraway planet. All right? You have to make your own decisions here. And your own decisions basically are, what are the requirements in the countries that you're going to? Remember, we've morphed from the metrics of what's the vaccination level of where we're going, which in Africa, by the way, is pathetic. Let's where I was last week in Tanzania, I had no fear. But if you looked at their vaccination percentage of the population, it's about 6%. It's absurd. But we've morphed from those metrics to what are the vaccination levels of us, of the people who want to go. And that's who we're talking to right now. That's who I'm talking to right now with you. What's your vaccination level? If you've gotten both vaccinations or you've been fully vaccinated on the Johnson & Johnson, okay, great. My advice to you is act responsibly and go. So here's the deal. In Tanzania, the question was, what about vaccinations in terms of other diseases like yellow fever? It's not really required. It's only required if you're coming from a major yellow fever destination. All right. So that's the one there. But remember, you want to take that negative COVID-19 test, and you're going to take it on the way back. Right. That's the U.S. requirement. That hasn't changed, even if you've been vaccinated. Now, Switzerland is an interesting thing. You can go if you're vaccinated, but the vaccination must have happened in the last 6 months. So, for example, I got vaccinated in February. So if I want to go to Switzerland in August, I may have a problem. You may have to, here we go with the booster shot. So again, another reason why you should not laminate your vaccination cards, because you may have to put some additional information on them from the authorities if you're going to get that booster shot. Now, all eligible passengers who can enter Swiss territory are subject to that negative COVID-19 test, which you've got to present twice. Once when you get on the airline to get there, and once when you arrive. There you go, right? 72 hours, PCR, you're in. You can have as much chocolate as you want. I've already nailed American Airlines on the Biscoff, so we're going to move on that. Now, lots of other things we got to talk about today, but let's first of all get to your questions. I'm going to go right now. Sandy Sam says hi from New York. Betty from Florida is still trying to find rental transportation in Seattle. You know what? It's bad, and it's going to stay bad until November, when they can get shipments of new cars. And right now, they're not getting them. They are just not getting them. Rona says, finally, you're only 200 miles away from Maui. Aloha. Aloha, Rona. Nick Contis, travel is safe. I'm just back from Kenya. Well, I'm just back from Tanzania. Exactly the point taken. Patrick Cooney says, greetings from hot Las Vegas. Don't forget your utility surcharge, Patrick. Hello, good morning, Evelyn. And hello, Jew. Hello. Oh, and just returned from the Canyonlands tour, and boy, was it hot. Hot planes crowded and national parks filled to the gills. Hope that the cruise lines get it together and relax the vaccinations. Well, two separate points here. The national parks are getting full. Many of them may close. Canyonlands is one. Arches is one. Of course, you've got Yosemite and Yellowstone. But on the East Coast, you've got Acadia. Go ahead. Find out. It's going to get crazy out there. Again, I said it last week. I'll say it again. Investigate local state parks that may be a better option for you, and they still may have camping available. Okay? Now, your second thing, Ann, was about cruise ships and vaccinations. As we're speaking right now, the cruise ship Celebrity Edge sailed from Florida last Saturday, just about 3 days ago, and no reports of any problems. However, because the state of Florida is a little bit crazy with their law about not requiring vaccination proof in order to get services, right? The cruise ship left with vaccination optional, which created an interesting challenge on board because if I could prove I was vaccinated, I didn't have to wear a mask. I had access to all the activities on the ship without restriction. But if I couldn't prove it, I'd have to wear a mask. And many of those activities on the ship, I was either not allowed to do or it was limited to me. Question of the day: how do you prove it? I mean, so I take my mask off and say I've been vaccinated. Who's going to challenge me? It's a little crazy. And this is only done to accommodate this Florida law, which obviously is still in the courts. And for those few of you who think I'm politicizing this and you don't want to hear my political views, this has nothing to do with politics. This has something to do with public health and common sense. Can we please get real here? And remember, no shirts, no shoes, no service? It's the same deal. So I do believe, from a practical matter, that private sector companies should have the right. No, they can't discriminate based on race or ethnicity or religion, but based on public health issues, you betcha, right? I want to reserve the right as a private sector to say, no one can enter these premises if you're glowing in the dark, right? I want you to prove to me you can't glow in the dark. Something like that, right? We have the technology to do it now. We should employ that technology. And my guess is, politics notwithstanding, the courts are not going to side on the state. It's going to be a federal issue here, right? It's a public health issue. So stay tuned. We will cover that. And I hope that it gets resolved one way or the other. Stephen Graves says, enjoying food court cuisine from DFW. My apologies and my condolences, Stephen. Okay, Robin DeCarlo, aloha from Williamsburg, Virginia, coming to Hawaii in October. Yes, and the answer is you can do that. Go to the website hawaiicovid19.com/travel for the latest updates on the rules. But remember, things are changing as of July 8th, all right, for the better. Colleen says hi from San Francisco. How's the weather in Hawaii? It's great. Yesterday was one of those postcard days with no wind, clear skies, calm seas. So for those people who've been to Kauai before, you know you can do the entire Napali coast at that point, get in on the caves, do the Kalalau Trail. It's 11 miles. However, the good news is, and a shout out to the state of Kauai, and this was happening before the pandemic. Remember managing growth? You can't just go hike the trail. You have to get a permit. And those permits are not easy to get. You have to be responsible. And this applies to anybody. So it's not going to be overloaded. The resources are not going to be taxed. And that's great. And the real key right now is we've had some road closures here in Kauai because there was an avalanche earlier in the year. They're going to stay closed at least for the next 6 to 8 months, which means, it's always going to be rush hour here because they have to close it down to a single lane between cities, between, towns on the island. And just be aware of that. Hopefully they'll figure out some public transportation issues because the last thing they need is another car on the road. But if you're at a resort and you're on the water, you know what? You're in for a treat. And if you can take the helicopter tour, which I do all the time, I do that helicopter tour all the time into the canyons and the waterfalls. You owe it to yourself to do that. It is a once in a lifetime experience. And what you'll see, and you'll see it immediately, especially on a day like yesterday when it was so clear, is you will see that old screensaver you used to have on Microsoft Word. It's real. It is just as real as that picture. All right. Let's keep going. Anne says hi from Clark, New Jersey. Tanya says, do I know if traveling on a Rhine River cruise to Basel, Switzerland, guests are required to be vaccinated within the last 6 months, or does this apply to traveling by air? No. Anytime you're entering a country, it applies. So what I just told you about Switzerland applies, okay? Hello from Delray Beach to Leslie. Evelyn's in Denver. Susie says, missed your show last week as I was myself in Tanzania on a 2-week mission trip and safari. And Susie, if I had to guess, you had a great time. And the weather was not bad, was it? It was really good. But what a great time to take a safari, whether it's in Kenya or Namibia or South Africa or Tanzania. First of all, it's open, it's available, you can breathe the air, you're not crowded, there's no social distancing issues, and they need your help economically, without a doubt. All right. From Willie? What are my thoughts on the new United Order and retrofits? I mean, and I'm super excited for it. For those of you who don't know, United announced yesterday about 200 plus new planes on order from both Boeing and Airbus, plus announcements to retrofit their planes to bring back really good quality onboard entertainment systems. You know, last year and the year before, a number of airlines, including American, thought that, well, since everybody's traveling with their own laptop or their own, iPad or tablet, we don't need these on the plane anymore. And so let's get rid of them. First of all, we'll save money on weight and the actual cost of the technology. And it didn't exactly work. It made things a little bit difficult for people to try to download some kind of stupid app before they got on the plane. So the good news is they're bringing them back. And the good news is they're retrofitting the plane. So a shout out to United on that. Willie says, I'm tuning in from Denver. All right. Is travel to Ghana safe for Americans? Okay, here's the same issue. If you go based on the vaccination levels of the people in Ghana, you would say, I'm not going. But if you've been properly vaccinated and, check with your own doctor. I do not play one on TV or on Facebook. But if you can check with your own doctor about your own physical condition or pre-existing conditions, you'll get good advice as to whether or not you should go. But if you've been vaccinated, I'd go. But that's just me. I'm not making a recommendation here other than for you to check with your own doctor. But again, the metrics have changed from the vaccination levels at the destination to the vaccination levels of the people who are going, which explains why every week now we can announce more and more European countries opening or changing the rules after they've opened, like Italy just did. You can basically, if you've been vaccinated, you can go without quarantining, and you can even go without testing. So check it out. Go to our website, petergreenberg.com. We're updating it every 3 or 4 days. Otherwise, it becomes outrageous as to where you can go and what the rules are. Look, South America is still a mess. Asia is still a mess. Think about this. Thailand wants to open up in October, and public opinion in the country itself among the Thais is over 75% of the people don't want it to open until the end of the year. So that should tell you about how messed up Asia is. But Europe opening up, Caribbean opening up, and we'll have more information on that as far as the United Kingdom goes next week. Remember, I keep telling you about July 19th as a magic date for the UK to make an announcement. I'm still thinking they're going to do it. I don't necessarily think they're going to say it's open as of July 19th, meaning on that day, but on July 19th, they may announce it will be open as of August 1. That's the hope. Hopefully those numbers will speak to that, and somebody will make a sane decision in the UK. Towards that end, Linda says, I'm hoping to attend near Edinburgh, Scotland on August 24th. Do I expect fully vaccinated U.S. citizens to be able and enter without quarantine by August 24th? You bet. All right. Hello from Geraldine. Is it a good idea to book a package through Expedia or American Airlines Vacation going to Vegas late September? Here's my deal on booking anything online with the OTAs. What did we learn during the pandemic about the online travel agents? That when the you-know-what hit the fan, they claimed to be Inspector Claude Rains from Casablanca. And remember him? Shocked to finding out that gambling was going on in Rick's Casino. The bottom line here is you need to book through someone who will take responsibility and be your advocate if something goes wrong. And I have to say, and I'm open for anybody from Travelocity, Expedia, you name it, to call and challenge me on this. I'm waiting for the online travel agencies to come forward and tell us that they're going to take that responsibility and advocate for the people that they're selling the travel to, right? You're not just a go through third party, because if you are, why would I go through you anyway? Just because it's expedient? There's nothing expedient about not being able to get anybody on the phone when you know what happens. So the answer to you, Geraldine, is for now, I would strongly suggest you go through a travel advisor or a travel agent, or book directly with the airline yourself, book directly with the hotel yourself. Okay? Look, I'm open to be disabused of this notion that the OTAs didn't behave well, or even worse or better, that they're about to behave better. So somebody from the OTAs, call me, peter@petergreenberg.com. You know where to find me. Let me know what you're doing in a proactive way to reassure me and everybody else watching today that you are actually going to be acting as an advocate here and not just a transactional third-party middleman, which doesn't help anybody. Okay. I agree with you, Geraldine, too much on resort fee for nothing in Vegas. You don't get anything for the resort fee. It's just an opportunity for the hotels, whether it's in Vegas or anywhere else, to not be transparent on the real amount of money you're going to be paying for your trip. They've got to stop this. Okay. Catalina wants to know, can I talk about how cruise lines are scrambling to hire their crews back? They're not scrambling to hire the crews back. The crews are back. They're scrambling to get them vaccinated. Remember, an overwhelming majority of the crews on cruise lines come from countries that don't have available vaccines, or countries that wouldn't even let them back home when the pandemic hit. We were dealing with so many thousands of disenfranchised crew members literally stuck at sea, you know? So right now, the main opportunity for the cruise lines is to find locations, not just in the US, but around the world, where they can bring them in, get them vaccinated so they can actually go back and cruise. That's what's going on. Steve Felix says it's Thursday. No, it's Tuesday because I'll be traveling Thursday. That's why we did it earlier this week. Next week, we'll be back to Thursday, so don't worry about that. Okay. This is good. If this is true, this will give you an idea of the stupidity of airlines. Okay, Catalina says, Avianca told us there would be no movies during the flight because of COVID. You know what you should do then? Do your own show and tell. Do your own musical on the flight called The Stupidity of Airlines. Look, enough of the airlines, hotels, and cruise lines and every other travel sector using COVID-19 as an excuse not to spend money. I understand public health issues, but no movies on the plane? Come on. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Karen, you're right. The cookie is a public statement. We're going back to Biscoff's. Okay. Yes, on the cookie. I'm getting a lot of response on the cookies. Yes. Okay. Any information on that $11 exit fee from Mexico? Yes, I can tell you now. We did the research on that. It is applying now. It's happening. You have to pay it when you leave. It's not part of the ticket. You have to pay it when you leave, which is one more line you get to stand in Mexico. So get ready for that. Stupid, but true. All right. Where are we now? Hold on. I'm scrolling back up here so I can get everybody. Stay with me here. This is playing games with me today. Stay with me. I'm going down here. A lot of you are coming in here. Okay. Terry says hello from rainy Michigan. Are there some local options for rental cars that we not be thinking of? Yes. There are a number of alternate Lyft companies like Turo or Silvercar. Check them out. I would do that. Also, now this is the crazy one, but let's do the math here. If the cost of a rental car in Florida for a small little Kia is $441 a day in some cases, you could lease a Kia for 3 months for less than that. So think about this. This is what a lot of people are doing right now that have a need for a car. They're literally going out and buying a used one or leasing a new one and basically selling it later. Bottom line is it's cheaper. Why are people in Hawaii renting U-Hauls? Because of the comfort ride? No, because they're cheaper. So those are some of your alternatives. Okay. Hello, Catherine. Here's one from Tanya. I was just on an American flight from Fort Lauderdale to DFW and got a 2-pack of Biscoff. Oh, you know what? They must be older Biscoffs. Yep, they're getting rid of the old inventory. You better frame those. Okay. Karen wants to know about Royal Tours in the future. Yes, Karen. As many of you know, for the last 20 years, I do a show on PBS called The Royal Tour. It has nothing to do with monarchy. It's where I go to individual sitting heads of state, kings, presidents, and prime ministers, and I actually get them to give me 7 days of their schedule devoted just to the two of us. And then for the next 7 days, imagine two people on a road trip, one of whom just happens to run the country. We've done that with everybody from the King of Jordan to the President of Mexico, the President of Rwanda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Prime Minister of Israel, Ecuador, Peru, you name it. And we are now working on 4 other countries. And I'll have some news for you probably within the next 60 days about the next Royal Tour. I should tell everybody that on these shows, and in particular on these shows, the heads of state have no editorial review or content control. Whatever happens, happens. And for those of you who've seen these shows before, you know that anything can happen. So it's a different way to see the country, to say the least. And we're entering our 21st year of doing them. So looking forward to it, and looking forward to seeing you as well, Karen. Hello from sunny Duluth, Minnesota. Are you in the river today? Okay. Joy Daniels, my grandson paid $20 for flight insurance. What is that for? In most cases, Joy, we've talked about this on the air before, that's for that he's been rewarded now for his naivete, right? Because most of you who make your reservations online, you cannot complete the transaction unless you either opt in or opt out of the travel insurance. And none of you, I'm not even exaggerating, none of you know what you're covered for. Worse, none of you know what you're not covered for. This is the one time I'm going to use the N-word. Here it comes. Never buy it online. Use a travel advisor or a travel agent. They can sell you the travel insurance, but most importantly, they can tell you what you're covered for and what you're not covered for. Look, the number 2 complaint level at the U.S. Department of Transportation and other consumer agencies after COVID-19 was worthless insurance that people bought. It's as simple as that. Now, there are some insurance companies that are changing their product, that are including COVID-19 now in the coverage. But again, you have to read the language. There are a lot of exclusions there as well. But the bottom line is, please, everybody, if there's only one thing you take away from today, it's do not buy the travel insurance that's online. And never, here's the N-word again, never buy it from the travel provider themselves. Because if they go out of business, there goes your insurance, even if it was good insurance. So bottom line here, use a travel advisor, use a travel agent, let them walk you through it. You'll be glad you did. And once again, it goes back to my OTA comment. If you buy the insurance online and everything gets hinky, who are you going to call? Even Ghostbusters is busy right now. So I'm a big fan of conversations with human beings. When you can have a conversation and they can walk you through stuff, that's the insurance question answered. We'll talk about it later. Hello from Dover, Delaware, from Maggie. Hello. Evelyn, more Biscoff cookie recommendations. You see, I'm not the only one. All right, thank you, Evelyn, for that. You can buy, Evelyn's suggestion you can buy 16 individual snack packs. Wow. You know what? If anybody's watching this from Biscoff Cookies and you want to be nice to me, let's do an airlift. Let's do an airlift to all of our Biscoff refugees. All right. Nancy, hello from Franklin, Tennessee. I love Franklin, Tennessee. We've done the show from Franklin, Tennessee. And she loves Kauai. I'm going to read this from Scott Cowan. It says, resort fees. Charge them for the lice. Charge them for the mice. 2% for looking in the mirror twice. Here's a little slice. There's a little cut. 3% for sleeping with the window shut. Oh, I'm going to use that, Scott. Oh, wait, I just did. Thank you for sharing that about resort fees. Okay, Nancy's heading to Costa Rica for photography tour on Friday. Fingers crossed for safe trip. Yes, you know what? Costa Rica's got a lot of paperwork to fill out. They do require insurance, as you already know, and you'll be fine. Sandy wants to know, is Ghana safe? I've always found it to be safe. What great history there. Again, act responsibly. Check the websites to find out what the rules have changed. But again, it's not about the vaccination levels there. It's about whether or not you're protected and whether you're going to act responsibly when you get there. Okay, Elizabeth wants to know, where can unvaccinated travelers go? In my book, they can go to their bedroom, they can go to their living room, and they can go maybe out to their own patio. Look, again, I'm not going to get into politics here. The practical aspects of this are, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to be restricted, either by the private sector or the public sector. And if you haven't figured that out lately, you really are shut in. So there you go. All right. Here we go. Hold on. Here's one from Marie Pauline Jolax. I hope I pronounced that right. Do I see any foreseeable change in July for those vaccinated travelers? We're going to St. Croix. We have to get COVID testing before, but coming back into the U.S., we don't have to. Well, the reason why you don't have to coming back to the U.S. is because St. Croix is part of the U.S., right? But St. Lucia's not. So remember, that's one of the reasons why the people who are going on Alaska cruises starting in like this week are going from San Diego or Seattle. They're not stopping in Canada. They've never left the U.S. They're going to another state, otherwise known as Alaska. So they don't have to do the negative COVID-19 test on their return cruise. But that's the exception to the rule. Okay. Here's a report from Christ in Uganda. If you're fully vaccinated, you can go to Uganda. You only need to show proof of being fully vaccinated and a negative PCR test. There you go. A trip to Poland in October. Any thoughts? It will be open by then. I do recommend, though. Here's a shameless plug. Find this on PBS. Watch our show, Hidden Poland. We did it last year. Those will be all my suggestions about all the things that are not in the brochure, all the things that are not in the guidebooks that are open and available to you. Here's one from Becky. Want to go to Amsterdam in August or early September? Yep. September's the month. It's the magic month everywhere. Catalina says, Cheapo Air has not taken responsibility for my refund. My point exactly. Catalina, do me a favor. Send me your details, peter@petergreenberg.com, the reservation number, who you've talked to, who you haven't heard from, what other correspondence you have with them, and we'll get into that, okay? We do that all the time, by the way, on my radio show, Eye on Travel on CBS. It's airing every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Check your local listings. And, of course, if you don't have the market in your area, that's easy. Go right to our website, petergreenberg.com, hit the radio icon. We stream it live at the same time. Okay. Here we go. When do I think St. Kitts will relax their requirements to shelter in your hotel for the first 9 days of your visit? Momentarily. If you want to know what's going on in St. Kitts, watch what Anguilla is doing. And Anguilla is about to open in a big way. Okay. Now, let's go to some of your questions that you sent in. Plus, we have the photo of the week. Let's put that up right now. The photo of the week. Karen Blackford sent this in. She took this photo in the Blue Mountains outside of Walla Walla, Washington. She says we visit this area every May from Portland for wine tasting, and we know about that. And excellent restaurants. The rolling hills and farmland make for a peaceful road trip. We highly recommend it. Looks pretty peaceful in this picture. Talk about social distancing. You got it. Breathe in, breathe out. Thank you again, Karen. If you got a photo you want to send in for photo of the week, that's easy. Just send it to me at peter@petergreenberg.com. And we will post it next week. Always happy to get them, especially the story behind it. All right. So some of the questions you were sending in earlier in the week. Have I heard if WestJet is refunding their tickets like Air Canada? They are about to, because the Canadian government themselves is forcing WestJet to do it as a condition of continued government aid to that airline. Let me know if you have a problem. From Alex, do I think Spirit Airlines will merge with Frontier? No, not at all. Watch me be wrong, by the way, but I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. Why has Southwest been, this is from Mary, why has Southwest been delaying or canceling their flights? I'm flying Southwest over the 4th of July and I'm nervous now. Here's the problem. And it's the same problem that Americans been having. It's a pilot shortage. You know, you bring back your planes from the parking lot, and it's not like just kicking the tires and turning on the ignition key. Everybody has to be requalified. It's called recurrent training. And that's whether you're flying a 737 or, an Airbus. It doesn't matter. So they've got to get the pilots back in the classroom. That's 2 days. Back in the simulator. That's 3 days before they can requalify and get back in either the left or the right seat. That's what's taking so long. You multiply that by the number of pilots they need to do that with and the number of flights that affects. Now you know why they've been doing it. Now, since the last time we talked, when American was canceling hundreds of flights over a weekend, the airline now is pulling back and literally eliminating 70 flights a day from their schedule to try to get more stable. But here's the deal. And I suggest this all the time. Once again, I don't go for electronic alerts. I believe in a phone call to a human being, even if it means being on hold for a little bit. Let's say I'm going to make this up. Let's say you're on flight 404 from LA to Atlanta. If you call the airline and say, is it on time? They're going to say yes, because their interpretation of your question is it scheduled to be on time? It doesn't help you. The Titanic was scheduled to be on time. So instead of that, and this applies to electronic alerts as well, get on the phone and say, listen, I'm on flight 404 to Atlanta. Can you tell me the tail number of the airplane that's assigned to that flight? They know that on their computer. They'll say it's tail number 896. Great. Can you tell me the exact position of flight of tail number 896? And if it's in Botswana, you're not going to Atlanta on that flight. You protect yourself getting all that bad information in the comfort of your own home, but you have the luxury now of a little bit of extra time to basically recover. All right. I do not appreciate electronic alerts from airlines because they don't tell me anything in real time. They think they do, right? We become addicted to the technology, but a conversation solves a lot more problems because it's not one-dimensional. You can actually come up with a plan B on the phone. So that's my suggestion on that. Let's keep going on these questions. I'm going to Istanbul on my way to Paris in September. I will have one day in Istanbul on the way there and one day on the way back. If you could do only one or two things in Istanbul, what would that be? Well, I'm going to tell you something that a lot of people are not going to tell you. They're going to tell you to go to San Sofia or the Blue Mosque or the Topkapi. I get that. I mean, Istanbul is a city of palaces and mosques, and it's phenomenal. It's overwhelming. Or they can tell you to go to the Grand Bazaar, which is overwhelming. Over 4,000 stores in there. And the US dollar, as you may have figured out, is king right now because they've devalued the Turkish lira so many times this year. I mean, the idea is make your money in the US and spend it in Turkey. You're going to have a ball. It's a buyer's market. But I'm going to tell you something else you should do instead. Or maybe not even instead, maybe in addition to. Get up in the morning early. I'm talking baker's hours. Get to a local bakery. Buy some simit. If you don't know what simit is, it's the traditional Turkish bread. It's phenomenal. And don't buy one, buy 5. I'm going to tell you why, because you're going to be sharing them with some new friends. Then go down to the ferry dock and take the ferry out to the Princess Islands. And this is where the locals go. American tourists don't go there. It's beautiful. And no cars, right? They have electric carts. So they're environmentally responsible. And why are you taking the simit? Because when you get on the ferry, go to the upper deck, and you'll be joined by more seagulls than you can imagine that'll be flying over you. These guys should be in the NFL. They don't drop a ball. These guys have a catch percentage you can't believe. You rip off pieces and feed them. It's the best. I'm telling you, it's an amazing performance. But then when you get to the Princess Islands, you just walk around and you do it at your own pace. And of course, on the way back, you're on the Bosphorus. You're seeing the skyline of Istanbul. It's just tremendous. So do that. That's one of my first pieces of advice. Karen, what is the best time of year to visit Europe? It's September. That's the magic month, especially in the Med. Dennis, which day will be busier at the airports this weekend? Friday or Monday? Answer, neither. It'll be Thursday. People get out early. And they'll probably come back Tuesday, right? With everybody working remote, nobody's punching clocks. So Thursday and Tuesday are going to be mean. Sunday, you can go bowling. Okay? So there you go. Irene, I'm concerned about how the Delta variant will impact travel to Europe. Will I still be able to travel to Italy in August if I'm vaccinated? Right now, the answer is yes. Remember what I said about the metrics. Miranda, will business travel be back? Will be back by Labor Day? No, it will not. It'll just be starting. Kids will be back in school. And finally, husbands will say to their wives, or wives will be saying to their husbands, can you please leave the house and go back on the road? And you know what? We've been waiting to do that. That's when it's going to happen. And that's when the CFOs of major corporations are going to have to change their travel policies. It doesn't mean everybody's going to travel, but they're not going to make it impossible for employees to travel to do business. And Rachel says, how do I get a vaccine passport? You got me, Rachel. You've got 40 different entities and countries working on it. Nobody's talking to each other. There's no centralized set of standards right now. I'm hoping there will be, but right now I don't have an answer. Right now, the only thing you need is a vaccine passport are your CDC vaccination cards. So protect them with your life and don't laminate them. All right. Again, our website, petergreenberg.com. You can email me, peter@petergreenberg.com. Our radio show, of course, is Eye on Travel on CBS every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I will see you next week at the usual time on Thursday. That's 12 noon Eastern time. I'm flying back to the U.S. tomorrow. So we'll talk later. But in the meantime, have a great week. Remember, the July 4th weekend is coming up. Travel responsibly. Still practice social distancing. But again, if you've been vaccinated, European countries are open. Caribbean is open. And as you can see, it's coming back with a vengeance. Let's hope. Let's really hope that, number one, we really don't go back to pre-pandemic bad behavior. And number two, for all of my friends watching today, Biscoff, please, bigger cookies and more of them. All right, that's my only plea. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.